Partisan redistricting, or gerrymandering, is about fractions, percentages. These coins represent voters in an evenly divided state, 50 dimes, 50 pennies. These 100 coins elect 10 representatives. That means each voting district must contain 10 coins. Now, real people don't live in neat rows, so let's mix them up. Okay, this is our hypothetical evenly divided state. Let's see what happens if the dimes draw the maps. 10 coins in each district. For the dimes, first thing we do is pack the pennies. Give them 2 safe districts, but pack them solid. The remaining 8 districts are won by the dimes, by smaller but still comfortable margins. The dimes win 8 districts, and the pennies win 2. The dimes overwhelmingly control the legislature. Of course, if the pennies drew the district lines, the opposite would be true. Let's rig it for the pennies. For the pennies, we follow the same pack and crack strategy. Pack the dimes into 2 safe districts and crack the remaining 8 districts to win by the same margin, 8-2. Well, now that we've destroyed democracy, let's consider what this map would look like if the districts were drawn for compactness and keeping communities of interest together. You get evenly divided districts in an evenly divided state. Some go heavily dime, some go penny, but that's to be expected. People live where they live, and that is what democracy is about. It's not about party bosses rigging election districts so they can fix the election results.
Yeah, my name's Monica von Dobenek. I live in South Londonderry Township in Lebanon County. I'm here because I think, one person, one vote is the basis of our whole system of government, and it has been horribly twisted through this gerrymandering where our representatives pick their voters rather than the other way around. I think anybody who looks at the maps can see how egregious it has become.
We, in the General Assembly, get the honor once every decade to cast a vote on congressional redistricting.
So this process has been a very public process, a very open process, and one in which our doors have been open to receive input throughout the year. And the end product that we were shooting for, and that is to have a map that would ultimately be constitutional, legal, and fair, and I believe that's what we've produced here today.
This is how the bill originally was introduced in the legislature in September of 2011. It just says the first district is composed of a portion of this Commonwealth. The second district is composed of a portion of this Commonwealth. They inserted the language at the last day. Here's what the actual final bill looks like. It's just page after page of lists of counties and wards and divisions.
The actual language of the districts was not dropped in until 9 in the morning, so the congressional redistricting plan was available for the legislators to see, for the press to see, for the people of Pennsylvania to see for only 14 hours before it came up for a final vote in the state Senate.
And I think this plan clearly meets constitutional and statutory obligations to reflect one person, one vote, and to send our congressional representatives to Washington, D.C.
If you ask the Republican leadership, have they complied with one person, one vote? They insist that they have. What would you say to that point of view?
I would say they're wrong. And I think anybody who looks at the map, that they devised could see that. There are places where the maps are like one house wide.
Most famous of that is the 7th Congressional District, the Goofy Kicking Donald Duck District. Just to highlight some of the absurdities in that, it has these big areas that are connected by these tiny, narrow isthmuses, and one of them is a place called Creed's Seafood and Steaks. So the 7th District basically includes just that building and its parking lot.
This map is absolutely one person, one vote. 705,687 in 5 districts and 705,688 in 13 districts.
We have 18 congressional districts, and the map is drawn in such a way that 13 out of the 18 are held by Republican members of Congress, no matter what the election looks like statewide. So there are 5 districts that are held by Democrats, and as you'll see, the Democrats win these districts by big margins. 85%, 91%. So the second congressional district, Congressman Evans's district, is regularly won by something like a 90-10 margin by Democrats because they've been designed to be so clustered into that district. Statewide vote share. Democrats got 50.8% of the votes statewide in congressional races in 2012, 50.8% of the votes, but they only got 5 out of 18 seats, which I think is about 28% of the seats in our congressional delegation.
We are suing under the Pennsylvania Constitution, saying that the current maps violate free expression and association claims. They violate the equal protection guarantees under the Pennsylvania Constitution and the free and equal clause under the Pennsylvania Constitution. We're arguing that in order to have a fair process, partisan records, party affiliation can't be part of the districting process.
So this is a lawsuit brought on behalf of the League of Women Voters of Pennsylvania and 18 individual voters, and it challenges Pennsylvania's congressional plan, our map for congressional districts, under the Pennsylvania Constitution. Pennsylvania has 18 congressional districts, and it's a very closely divided state on partisan lines. So you might expect that our congressional delegation would have, say, 9 Democrats and 9 Republicans, or maybe 10 and 8, but that's never how it works. The plan was engineered so that 13 Republicans would always win. So one example of this is Montgomery County, Pennsylvania, which is part of the western suburbs of Philadelphia. It has about 800,000 people, which is to say it has about the right number of people to have one member of Congress representing Montgomery County. Instead, the maps were drawn in such a way that Montgomery County is divided among 5 different congressional districts, and not one of those 5 representatives lives in Montgomery County. So it's the 3rd biggest county in Pennsylvania. It has its own distinct political needs and wishes, yet it is pretty much not represented at all in Congress the way this map has been drawn.
Do you solemnly swear that you will support, obey, and defend the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of this Commonwealth?
And the Constitution of this Commonwealth.
If so, say, I do. Congratulations.
When elected officials are sworn in, they swear to uphold the state constitution. Just look at what they are doing. Do they follow what the Constitution requires, which is that they are compact and contiguous? And our argument would be that they absolutely do not.
My name is Mimi McKenzie. I'm the legal director for the Public Interest Law Center. So today we urge the Pennsylvania Supreme Court to uphold and protect the freedoms in our state constitution and return elections to the people. I want to introduce our co-counsel from Arnold and Porter Case Schuler, David Gersh.
There came a moment in response to questioning from the justices when Speaker Turzai's lawyer came out and admitted that, in fact, this was a purely political exercise, that they knew how to identify the Democratic voters, that they did it, and the map was drawn based on that fact. And they made the claim, they took the position that there should be no limits whatsoever on how partisan the districts could be.
In the day's other news, the Pennsylvania Supreme Court threw out the state's congressional map. It ruled that districts had been so heavily gerrymandered to benefit Republicans that it violated the state's constitution. The court gave the Republican-led legislature until February 9th to fashion a replacement. But GOP leaders said that they would appeal to the U.S. Supreme Court.
The drawing of congressional lines, that's in the federal constitution. We think it was a completely partisan ultimate gerrymander. This was and is a usurpation of democracy that is put in the hands of legislators.
Would you be okay with the court's decision if they had ruled the map unconstitutional but given you more time, say?
No.
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 Can you go into that a little bit?
Yes, because they don't have the power to do that. This is nothing short of alarming. This is really inappropriate.
I think it's really important for everyone to understand there is no constitutional right to an unconstitutional map. And so let's make no mistake, they're benefiting from the way the lines they're drawn right now, but there's no right to hold on to a map that's unconstitutional.
So before we move on, there's a couple of things I think should be mentioned. There are congressional district maps, there are House representative maps, and there are state Senate maps. So there's 3 sets of maps. The other issue is that in January 2018, the Pennsylvania State Supreme Court ruled the congressional district maps an illegal gerrymander and ruled that new maps had to be drawn immediately. But those maps are only congressional maps. They did not order new maps for state senators or state representatives. The third issue is the difference between a lawsuit and legislative reform.
Our bill is about the future. Our bill is about what's going to happen in 2021, 2031, 2041, and beyond. The court case was only dealing with the congressional districts. It did not alter the state house or state senate districts that we've had since 2011. And secondly, it changed the congressional map, but it did not change the process that we use to draw those maps. And our effort, with broad bipartisan support, is to change that so that an independent citizens commission is in charge of redistricting the next time around and for decades thereafter.
Let me officially welcome folks here at the Church of the Good Samaritan. We're thrilled to be hosting this event. With that, I'm going to hand the mic over to Dr. Carol Cunningham.
Let me say again, this is a nonpartisan discussion. Both parties do this. The Democrats did a really good job with their tools available in Pennsylvania in 1991. In 2001, the Republicans said, "Oh, really?" And they did an even better job. And if you go across Pennsylvania, especially our House districts, you'll see all of our small cities or denser towns split. They're cracked out. So here, this is Beaver Falls. It's been split into 4 different House districts. And look at the one that goes actually through Beaver Falls and then just keeps going. That was very, very carefully done to make sure that community has no voice. That's cracking. This is a picture of Allentown. That's another city that ties with Reading as being one of the most underfunded school districts in the country. So Allentown is divided into 3 House districts. It ought to have somebody who is thinking only about Allentown. Instead, it's a piece, and the least important piece, of 3 districts. In our area, in my area, here in Chester County area, we have lots of examples of communities that are just cracked right out, divided up. Phoenixville is one, Norristown is one, Westchester is another. I could go on a long time to tell you the ways that this impacts policy. I'll give you one more specific example and then a kind of general point about this. Lead poisoning. We've all heard about Flint, Michigan, and the lead poisoning in the water. I don't know if you know, but there are 18 cities in Pennsylvania that have far worse lead poisoning than Flint, Michigan, because these are cities with older housing and older buildings, and they're all painted with lead paint, and every time you open a window or a door, there's lead dispersed into the air. So we have 18 cities, far worse. You can see there's a kind of a little faint blue line there. Do you see it? That's Flint. That's how the lead poisoning in Flint. We are far, far worse than that. But for comparison, the lead exposure rate in Flint is 3.21%, which is toxic. In York, it's 12.41. Lebanon, it's 12.91. If you could see this well, you'd see that all of these cities have at least 4 times the level of lead exposure that Flint does. It's difficult to compare Pennsylvania as a state, though, because we don't have mandatory testing. Most states do. And you would think a state where this has turned out to be a serious problem would immediately, the legislature would say, we need to do mandatory testing of children at these ages so we can catch this early and make sure it's remediated. Pennsylvania has not done that.
I'm from Monroe County.
I'm from North Catasauqua.
And I'm from Coopersburg, Pennsylvania.
I'm on the bus because I'm tired of my state representatives and my state senators being held accountable to their party leaders as opposed to the citizens of Pennsylvania.
Fair District's PA from Berks County. We're going to Representative Turzai, the Speaker of the House. We're going to his office. Any future redistricting bills need to go to another committee other than the House Government Committee, where they will be stopped or eviscerated.
This meeting of the House State Government Committee is called to order. We've had a lot of lobbying of my office, of my colleagues. House Bill 722 sets up an unaccountable commission of citizens not elected by their fellow citizens, but ultimately appointed. And I think the best way to make sure we have a citizens actually being the ones redrawing, citizens who are held accountable to their fellow citizens who elect them to office, is to totally gut and replace this bill with the amendment that is now before us. I think if you truly want this done by the citizens, then I think the best way is to make sure those citizens are elected, not appointed.
This process is broken. If you need any greater testament, look at what will happen by 11 a.m. today.
Mr. Chairman, the amendment passes 15-11.
Thank you, Representative Hill. The bill is amended. We'll go over for the day. Motion adjourned by...
The people have the right to alter and reform. The people have the right to alter and reform. The people have the right to alter and reform. Our Pennsylvania Constitution says that, promises that, and yet that right has been denied us here in this House again and again and again. Gerrymandering undermines accountable government, and we are gathered here to make clear that that must change.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm Eric Rowe, and I'm the proud Republican prime sponsor of House Bill 722. Just like freedom, democracy is a fragile thing, and it must be fought for and protected, and that is what we're going to do with an independent redistricting commission.
Good afternoon. I'm Tim Stevens, Chairman and CEO of BPEP, the Black Political Empowerment Project. The mission of BPEP is to encourage African Americans to vote in each and every election. However, we encourage all people to vote in each and every election.
You know what to do. Pass SB 22. You know what to do. Pass SB 22. You know what to do. Pass SB 22. You know what to do. Pass SB 22.
On June 25th, 2018, the Gerrymander Reform Bill, SB 22, finally came to the floor of the Pennsylvania House.
The Sergeant at Arms will open the doors of the House. We have some amendments in front of us. The amendment passes. The amendment passes.
There's quite a few amendments there. Could we take mine one at a time?
All those in favor of the amendment will vote aye. Those opposed, nay. Members will proceed to vote.
By the end of the day, more than 500 amendments were piled on top of the bill by both Democratic and Republican legislators.
So we are not adjourned at this time, but we will be back in session at 1 p.m.
The next day, the House reconvened but did not take up SB 22.
So members, if you could, please take your seats, then we're going to go into some votes. At this time, the House is going to stand in recess Until called the chair, we are not going to be announcing a specific return date. There are no further votes. However, I would like to just make a couple of announcements, please.
When the House abruptly ended session on June 26th, the legislature once again blocked gerrymander reform for the State House, State Senate, and congressional delegation. But despite their inaction, the state Supreme Court decision took effect.
This is the new Pennsylvania map that was drawn after the Supreme Court ruled the prior map to be unconstitutional. It looks like Montgomery County is pretty much intact. You know, there may be some parts of Montgomery County that fall into a different district. It looks like up here it does. Berks County, where I live, is this right here. I am still within the 6th congressional district, but there's a major change to this map that I'm happy for. I'm actually in the same congressional district as the city of Reading. If you look at the old map, you can see the district that I live in stretches from Chester County up through Montgomery County, all the way across the midsection of Berks County, conveniently cutting out the city of Reading, which has about 88,000 citizens. That's an absurd gerrymander. So and you said that was Turzai who said that?
We think it was a completely partisan, ultimate gerrymander.
For that statement to be made with a straight face is absolutely ludicrous, that the new map is the ultimate partisan gerrymandering when you look at this monstrosity that was put through the legislature in 2011.
So the old map, stretched 120 miles from the PA-Ohio border into the Laurel Highlands of Pennsylvania. It covered 6 counties, okay, 5 of which were split in some way. The new map is one geographically condensed area, which is southwestern Pennsylvania. It comprises of 4 counties, and it only splits 1 out of those 4 counties.
It's terrific. It's a wonderful map. It meets all this criteria. It's not just their job to have the certain number of people. It's to have fair and equal treatment, a fair vote, and to have compact and contiguous district. It's right in the Constitution.
Pennsylvania's redrawn 2018 congressional district map, the result of the League of Women Voters PA lawsuit, followed guidelines ordered by the court. Do not divide any county, city, incorporated town, borough, township, or ward except where necessary to ensure equality of population. Let the simplicity and clarity of those words sink in for a moment, because the Republican majority refused to comply with the court's order.
This was and is a usurpation of democracy that is put in the hands of legislators.
This is a usurpation of the sovereign power of the legislature under the Pennsylvania Constitution.
The congressional redistricting that is the prerogative of the state legislature to determine, not the state courts.
Would you be okay with the court's decision if they had ruled the map unconstitutional but given you more time, say?
No.
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 Can you go into that a little bit?
Yes, because they don't have the power to do that. This is nothing short of alarming. This is really inappropriate.
Ultimately, a special master was assigned by the court to redraw the congressional district map. For comparison, the old map split 28 Pennsylvania counties and 68 municipalities. The new map splits 13 counties and only 19 municipalities. The upshot? In the 2018 congressional election, Pennsylvania's delegation went from a gerrymandered 13-5 Republican-Democrat split to a 9-9 split, which mirrors the state's electorate. Make no mistake, this is a landmark case. It's the first time ever a Supreme Court, state or federal, has struck down a redistricting map on the grounds that general Constitutional principles prohibit partisan gerrymandering. But as good as this ruling and the new map is, it's a limited victory. Pennsylvania's Senate and House legislative districts are as gerrymandered as ever. 2018 saw a record-breaking voter turnout, but 1/3 of voters did not have a choice for their state legislators. More than 1/3 of Pennsylvania House and Senate incumbents ran unopposed in the general election. Gerrymandering effectively insulates the people from their politicians and politicians from the public. And if nothing changes, legislative leaders will begin redrawing congressional, Senate, and House district maps again in 2021. Change is not easy, and there are few simple answers, but representative democracy really is at stake, and you either believe in it or you don't.
Do you solemnly swear that you will support, obey, and defend the Constitution of this Commonwealth? If so, say, I do.
A lot of times when I've talked to people about changing the Constitution, I've said the Constitution is not the problem. It's people raising their hand like we do, swear to uphold and defend it, and then they don't. They're the problem. It's people raising their hand like we do, swear to uphold and defend it, and then they don't. They're the problem.
We want people's votes to actually mean something. We want people to feel that they actually have an opportunity to help determine who represents them, not that the incumbents, regardless of party, determine who their voters are. Am I right about it? We want to see the end of divisive and continuing partisan bickering, which is tearing our Commonwealth apart and tearing our nation apart. This is what democracy looks like. This is right. Democracy looks like. This is what 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 democracy looks like.
No one ever said it was going to be easy to amend the Pennsylvania Constitution. It's a really uphill fight, and it's a fundamental challenge anytime you're trying to change the way elections happen. If the people who need to make the decision are the people who benefit from the status quo, and if that's not what an incumbent is, then I don't know what an incumbent is. An incumbent is someone who benefits from the status quo, and if you're asking people like that to change the rules of the game, you're always going to be fighting an uphill fight. We don't think that minor tinkering with the rules, with the procedures for drawing maps, is going to solve the problem. There needs to be a bigger change than that. Otherwise, there's going to have to be litigation every decade. We're happy to keep bringing those cases if that's what's required.